Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahlam Naili and I'm gonna present about the introduction. Meta-discourse refers to how writers or speakers explain themselves in their texts or speeches to interact with audience. So there are two categories of meta-discourse, which are interactive and interactional meta-discourse. So this paper highlights an interactional meta-discourse that involves markers to express the speaker's attitude, engage the audience, and manage interpersonal relationship. There are five types of markers, which are hedges, boosters, self-mention, engagement markers, and the last one, attitude markers. So this research paper used Highland's model because it is relevant to spoken discourse as speakers frequently use meta discourse to maintain audience engagement, helps speakers to structure ideas and guide listeners to understand what they are saying. So the purpose of this study is to investigate how interactional meta discourse resources are used in specialized spoken corpora found in talk show, which is The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, to structure discourse and support audience understanding.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Nurhani Sofia binti Abdul Razak and I will be continuing this presentation with the literature review section of our paper. This section introduces the concept of meta-discourse and interactional meta-discourse. Meta-discourse refers to how speakers or writers interact with their audience through language. According to Highland 2005, meta-discourse is divided into interactive and interactional types. In this study, we focus on interactional meta-discourse, which allows speakers to express stance, certainty, and engagement with the audience. Highland models identify five categories, which are hedges, boosters, attitude markers, engagement markers, and self-mention. Previous studies have applied these frameworks across various spoken contexts such as job interview, TED Talks, academic discourse, and television talk shows. However, studies on online talk shows remain limited. Therefore, these studies analyzes the Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon to address this research gap.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nazila Frina and I'll be presenting the methodology. So, first, in terms of corpus description, this study uses a specialized spoken corpus collected from talk shows. The source of the data is the show, The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, which is known for its spontaneous and conversational interaction between the host and guests. So, there's a total of five English language episodes that were selected for the study. All episodes were taken from the year 2025, which each episode lasting approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and the episode featured actors and actresses as guests. These episodes were chosen because they provided natural, unscripted spoken interaction, which is suitable for analyzing interactional meta discourse. Next, after selecting the episodes, the spoken data was processed using AntConc software version 4.3.1. This software helped us identify interactional meta-discourse markers in the corpus, which are hedges, boosters, engagement markers, attitude markers, and self-mentions. ANCOT was also used to generate frequency counts and to analyze concordance lines, also known as KWIC in the talk, which allowed us to observe how the markers function in real context. Moving on to the data analysis procedure, we first identified keywords related to interactional meta-discourse markers, and next, these markers were searched systematically using ANCOT. After that, the frequency of each category was calculated, and finally, we analyzed the context and rhetorical functions of the markers based on the concordance lines. So this combination of quantitative and qualitative analysis allowed us to understand not only how often hedges are used, but also why they are used in spoken discourse. And that is all for methodology. I will move on to findings and discussion for hedges. Okay, so in general, hedges are used to reduce certainty, express opinions politely, and maintain a conversational tone. This is especially important in talk shows where speakers aim to sound natural, friendly, and engaging rather than formal or authoritative. In spoken interaction, speakers often avoid making overly strong or absolute statements. Instead of that, they use hedges to soften their expressions, which allows them room for flexibility and shared understandings. In our study, it shows that hedges help speakers manage their stance when expressing opinions, predictions, or personal experiences, and they also function as a face-saving strategy, and it also helps the speakers avoid sounding too confident, arrogant, or confrontational. So overall, the frequent use of hedges reflects the informal, interactive, and audience oriented nature of talk show discourse. Now, to better show how we found the findings, I will now present several examples of hedges taken directly from the data. To better illustrate these findings, I will now present several examples of hedges taken directly from the data. So, as for example 1, we can observe the use of the hedge about. For example, the sentence used by Noah Schnapp, and then we can talk about the end of episode 4. And the next excerpt would be, do I know about the bubble yet, or am I not in the bubble? Which was used by Ariana Grande. So, in these examples, the hedge about is used to keep the discussion general rather than specific. This allows the speakers to introduce a topic without sounding too direct or demanding, which helps maintain a relaxed and maintain a relaxed conversational flow. Next, the hedge that was found is the hedge I think. So as you can see, Jennifer Lawrence said, I think because I've been like, and Greta Lee says, I think I'm like a pretty normal person, I'm going to. So here, I think signals the speaker is expressing a personal opinion rather than a fact, which which then reduces the level of certainty and allows the speakers to share their thoughts without imposing them on others. And lastly, we can see the hedge will being used when referring to future actions or events. The example includes the excerpt by Noah Schnapp, like they will put full trust in all of us. And the next one by Jennifer Lawrence, well, the lights will go down. In these cases, will is not used to make a firm promise, but rather to express expectations or predictions. And this helps softens the commitment and keeps the statement open-ended. Together, these examples show how hedges function naturally in spoken discourse to support smooth interaction. And to conclude, this study demonstrates that hedges play an important role in spoken interaction by helping speakers manage certainty, politeness, and interpersonal relationships. In the context of talk shows, hedges allows speakers to express ideas flexibly while maintaining a friendly and conversational tone.
Next, I will explain the use of boosters in our talk show corpus. Boosters are interactional meta-discourse markers that emphasize the certainty of a statement. According to 7D 2071, using boosters is a practical way for speakers to show confidence in their expressions. In our study, three main boosters were identified. The boosters really is mainly used when guests are telling stories or sharing experiences, and it functions to validate a statement. The boosters vary is used to describe strong emotions or events functioning to intensify adjective in a sentence. Finally, of course is used to reflect agreement with an obvious fact, helping to establish common ground between the host and the guest. In terms of frequency, really appeared 23 times in the corpus, making it the most commonly used boosters. Very appeared 21 times and of course appeared 5 times. This shows that really is the preferred boosters for emphasizing certainty when sharing experiences. Okay, moving on, I will explain the examples of boosters found in the talk show corpus. The first boosters really is the most frequently used in the samples. It is mainly used when guests are sharing their experiences and functions to validate a statement. For example, as you can see in the excerpt 1 and 2, Steve Buscemi said, I don't follow sports, really, and golf I don't follow at all. In another instance, in the excerpt 2, Steve Buscemi also said, I was so nervous because I really believe he was Tony Soprano. In both cases, really emphasizes the speaker's certainty and personal conviction. So the second boosters vary is used to intensify adjective when guests describe emotions or events. As you can see in the excerpt 1, Steve Buscemi said, yes, this is a very angry person, very angry person. In another example, in the excerpt 2, Jennifer Lawrence said, it was very embarrassing. How is he a dancer? Here, very strengthens the adjective to convey the intensify of the emotion or situation. And finally, the boosters, of course, occurs when guests reflect agreement with a statement, helping to establish common ground between the speakers and the listeners. For example, in the excerpt 1, when Jimmy Fallon asked, does he remember that? Steve Buscemi answered, of course not. In another instance, in the excerpt 2, Steve Buscemi responded, yes, of course, when commenting on the statement where the pyramid as a head. This example shows that, of course, is used to confirm or agree with the statement while maintaining interaction between participants.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Muhammad Ahmad Ziminoli. Now let's focus on the engagement markers. Engagement markers are used to construct shared relationship between the speakers and listeners, and then to catch the audience attention, and then to draw negotiate meaning so that the listeners will keep on guessing what will the speaker say next. So that's about it. Now let's focus on the frequency of the engagement markers in the samples. So there are three engagement markers could be found in the samples, and the most frequently used is which used 53 times for all of the samples. Now, each of the samples is used differently based on the context and the functions. As for is when the speaker is sharing the personal statement and expecting the listeners to get the same idea and to seek validation from the listeners. Less is when the speaker is including the listeners to participate in a topic and work as a transition to start a new segment. And then lastly is by the way is when the speaker is giving extra information that is related to a context and its function is to introduce a new topic to listeners to build connection. So it works as it's like this, talking about the topic and then jump out of the track for a while, giving an extra information and then goes back into the track once again. So now we are focusing on the examples for each engagement markers. So let's start with the first one, which is the is used for example like this, I haven't seen you in 8 years, and she said, it will be so funny. So based on these two examples, we can see that the markers, is used when the speakers are trying to catch the attention from the listener so that the listener was guessing what will the speaker say next. And then for the let's, as for example here, let's talk about what happened and then let's get into it. So from the examples, the host is trying to politely force the guest to start for a segment, which is jumping from one segment into another segment. So from introduction, and then you want to start the show right away. And then the next one is by the way, and you're struggling, by the way, amazing acting. That's for first example, and then the second example. But also, by the way, your acting was crusher, buddy. As what I mentioned earlier from the previous slide, talking about the topic, and then the speaker went out of track for a while, giving a compliment or whatsoever, just like the example given in compliment. After he finished giving the compliment, he jumps back into the main topic. So that's about it.
So next, I'm going to explain about findings and discussion for attitude markers. First of all, attitude markers are used to convey the writer's stance or attitude towards the ideas presented in the text or speeches according to Soiler and others 2023. What are the uses for attitude markers? In our specialized corpora, we found that attitude markers used to evaluate people and performance, evaluate things positively, and give emotional reaction to people and situation or things. So the attitude marker we found in talk shows is great. These attitude markers used to evaluate people or performance, and the main function is to express approval and encouragement and positive emotions. Next, amazing. These attitude markers used to evaluate people or things positively. The main function is to signal admiration and enthusiasm. The last one is unbelievable. These attitude markers used to give emotional reaction to people and situation or things. And the main function is to express surprise feeling and admiration. So let's look at the attitude markers frequency. So this frequency shows that the attitude markers great is used the most commonly with 34 occurrence and followed by amazing with 11 occurrence and the last but not least unbelievable with 9 occurrence, which are the less used often. So let's look at for the examples. These are the examples of the attitude markers we found in talk shows. So for the first one, attitude marker great. For excerpt one, the statement "you are great at it" was said by Jimmy, who is the host in the talk show. He said that because he approved that she's great in acting, she does things that she has never done before. So Jimmy uses this attitude marker to approve her as a great actor. So for excerpt 2, the statement "great job" was used by Jimmy to tell Noah that he is doing a great performance while struggling in a drama series named Stranger Things. Jimmy used this attitude marker to express a positive emotion to Noah. So let's look at for the second most used marker, amazing. For excerpt 1, Jimmy talked about John Daly and said that he is an amazing golfer. And Steve also approves that this guy is amazing. This signals their admiration toward John Daly. So, for excerpt 2, Jimmy said that Steve has many amazing projects that are happening and they all want to know that. Jimmy used the word amazing to show his interest in project that Steve is doing. So let's look at for the last one. Attitude marker unbelievable. So for excerpt 1, the statement said by Jimmy, he is unbelievable. So is to show the statement is to show his admiration towards John Murray when Ariana mentioned him. So for the excerpt 2, the statement stated by Jimmy to refers to Greta's action when she demonstrates the way she running in the movie. So Jimmy used these art attitude markers to show that he was surprised and did not expect it from her. So I think that's all for me. I pass to the next presenter.
Now we are focusing on the most used interactional meta discourse in the talk show, which is the self markers. Self markers are used to make the speaker's presence visible, indicate authority by using the word like my or our, and the last one is indicate responsibility, where the self markers is combined with the verb. Now let's focus on the frequency. Could be found four examples, and then the most frequently used is I, which contribute 589 times in all samples. Each of the markers have the different context and main function. As for I, used during telling stories and reacting to question or comments, usually made by the speakers, which is the speakers is the guest, and to indicate actions and expression of the ones who are talking is the main function. So next is the we. We is used when the speaker is used as a collective observation to indicate that the actions are done with other people collectively. And then lastly is my. The main context is discussing ownership during storytelling, and the function is to mark individual ownership towards something. Let's jump into example to get a clear image. Now let's focus on the self markers examples that could be found in the talk show. Let's start with the first one, which is I. For the first example, I'm a fan of yours. I love your acting. And the second example, there are reviews that I wrote down. So as what I mentioned earlier in the explanation slide, I is the first person pronoun, and the usage of these self markers is to show that the action is done by that speaker, not the other person. So that's literally about it. And then we is almost the same as I, but this is collectively, as you can see from the example. And then the speaking of buddies, can we talk about Bad Bunny? So the Jimmy Fallon said that to Steve to indicate that he wanted to change the topic collectively with Steve. Same thing goes in when the Jennifer Lawrence talk about the her experience with the director. The director want to find an idea, want to find a solution with Jennifer Lawrence collectively. And then lastly is my is to show authority. For a first example, my dad was always into that stuff. Steve is highlighting to his dad, not the others. And then for the second example, my eyes roll back, which is to indicate that Noah Schnapp's eyes rolled back during the shootings for a series that he was working on with. So now I would like to conclude our study. So in conclusion, the finding reveals that all five categories of interaction meta discourse, such as hedges, boosters, engagement markers, attitude markers, and self-mentions, were present in the corpus. Among all of the interaction meta discourse, self-markers were the most frequently used in the talk show because we want to show interactive nature of the talk show discourse. So interaction meta discourse plays an important role in helping speakers to manage clarity, stance, and audience engagement in spoken discourse. These markers contribute to smooth interaction, audience involvement, and effective communication in talk show settings. Now, to conclude the result highlight the importance of interactional meta discourse for talk show hosts and guests. Understanding how interactional meta discourse function in talk shows provide valuable insights for media professionals, language learners especially, to seek for to improve spoken communication skills. Despite we gave our all in completing this study, um, there are also some flaws or limitations. So in future, we do hope that in future studies analyze different talk shows, speakers of different gender or speakers from diverse culture, in order to get a more comprehensive understanding of interactional meta discourse in spoken discourse.